Okay, so despite the fact that Mr. Catalyst had backed off quite a bit and was, for whatever reason, not able to speak with me after I lost my job, I, this is hard to admit, but it's the truth. I really still wanted to meet up with him because I really wanted to see this person given everything that was going on with me and how connected I felt to him. So what was happening was the spell of this emotional connection, the metaphysical connection, and the hardcore synchronicities. Those three things were lining up so that I was overlooking or willing to ignore behavior that was simply not acceptable. Okay. And once again, getting back to it, I said, okay, well, I still don't know this person very well. I haven't even met up with him, and I don't really know what he owes me, but I felt he owes me at least a phone call, right? We could talk on the phone. I'm here in Philly now. And so, there were red flags before, but now there were blatant red flags. But I still had a lot to do. I didn't really have time to think about it. I did wind up getting the administrative job. It was actually a much better job, like I had mentioned. And I was very happy about that. And so a start date had been set for November. The reason why that's important is I kind of had to reset myself for a new full-time administrative job, which I was really excited about. And I was continuing, my stuff was arriving from California. I was continuing to unpack. Still a lot of stuff going on. I was going out to my parents in the suburbs to help my mom and my father as I was going through all this. My father was still doing pretty well, but, they needed a little bit of assistance here and there. I got back to Philly in time, thank God. So I remember the exact date. On October 20th, 2019, which was a Sunday, I had stayed over at my parents' house Saturday into Sunday to help my mom with a few things and just to give her a break, to be honest. And I woke up and things did not feel right. And I messaged Mr. Catalyst a couple of things, and then I went to a core and cardio class. I was maintaining my workout schedule throughout this. And I remember being in that core and cardio class, and I'm like, something does not feel right. I felt awful. It's hard to put into words, but the short of it is I knew, I could feel that Mr. Catalyst was sleeping with another woman. And forgive me if that sounds woo, but it's the truth. And, I confirmed it with him, much later on, so I won't get into that here. But I literally felt him for a number of hours sleeping with another woman. And it's easy for me to talk about. It's hard for me to just say it verbally because it sounds so weird. But given the level of connection that I had to this person, it makes total sense to me how I could feel this. And obviously, if you know that someone, because I did care about this person at this time, dare I say I was probably in love with him, as odd as that seems, but I might as well just put it out there because it's the truth. To have someone that you really care about and they're sleeping with someone else was just making me feel completely awful, really nauseous, and it just went on for hours and hours and hours. Now, I want to not leave this in such a dark place, so I'm going to do a quick flip and say that once I was able to get over the situation, the things that I learned about the male sex drive are simply unparalleled. Now, obviously, I'm not a man, But I am a woman that now knows a lot about the male sex drive, how men operate, because I did, not only did I did a deep dive into it, I actually felt it myself. And once again, that sounds kind of woo, but if you go back to one of my earlier videos where I mentioned I was in a yoga class and Mr. Catalyst's sexual energy came over me, and in retrospect, I allowed it to come into me. What I should have done is said, no thank you, and sent it back. But since that had never happened before and that was a novel idea, I just gave my consent, right? Without even realizing what I was doing. And these backdoor consent things, they really need to stop. All right, so that was a good example of backdoor consent, where you don't know what it is, but it seems interesting, so you say yes. So regardless, you have now given your consent. Backdoor consent. You don't know what you're consenting to, but you say yes. So all this was going on that Sunday, and once again, like, what am I going to say to someone? Oh yeah, this guy that I've been messaging with for a couple of months, I know he's sleeping with somebody else because I can feel it. It's really an ass busting, pain inducing experience. Like, no one's going to be able to relate to that, frankly. They're going to be like, oh, okay, well, it just looks like an overreaction on my part. And I knew that, so I just kept it to myself. So the day went on and I went back to my apartment, and I still have this horrible feeling in me. And I know what's going on, but once again, like, I don't know this guy that well. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, message him and be like, hey, are you sleeping with somebody else? Like, that's the thing about these situations. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna go there, right? Because in real life, at least there was still logic in my brain. I said, I don't know this person, so I'm not even gonna ask him. So later that night, I had a lot of things to do the next day. He sends me, I had asked him a couple of questions, via messaging, and he sends me just this one word response: yo. Yo. Y-O. And I was like, okay. So, and I want to dive into this here, because as I said in my previous videos, I don't want to have you wait till the end to learn all the lessons that I learned going along with this, okay? So let me just put a caveat in there and say I didn't know this at the time, okay? But I've seen it with men subsequently. Actually, I won't say a decent amount, but this is a pattern, okay? So, in my opinion, what this person was doing is he's kind of engorging himself on these sexual activities, right? And I want to make it clear, this is not all men, all right? This is in this particular situation. And, like I said, I've seen this subsequently. Now that I know the male sex drive, I can pick it out, okay? Because, they can tell, a person now can tell me X, Y, Z. I don't pay attention to words. I just watch the energy. That's what you have to learn to do, okay? All right, so when he sent that one word, yo, I could tell, like, he was, like, almost engorged sexually. The visual I'm getting is almost like this blood vessel that's about to burst. And there are a contingent of men that do this, so please be aware. And they'll either go at one woman, pretty darn hard to kind of get their needs met, or it'll be a variety of women over time. That's probably a whole other conversation. But that's what was happening when he sent me that one word. He was engorged on this other woman's energy, and it was extremely painful for me. I'm not going to lie. At the time, I'm fine now. I mean, it's more emotional for me to discuss the beautiful positive aspects, such as Aaron Pappas coming to me and trying to help me out in my situation. I still get sentimental about that, but discussing the darker aspects don't really bother me at all. And that's one of the things too, that once you disconnect this energy web, you'll be able to discuss it easily. So I don't respond to his one-word response of, yo, I just let it go. 2 nights later, I believe it was a Tuesday, October 22nd, 2019. I'm not good with dates, but I remember these dates. I wake up in the middle of the night, and I had not communicated with Mr. Catalyst. I was in the worst emotional pain I've ever been in probably like the past 20 years. I don't know. It is like nothing I could describe. I didn't know what to do. It was that bad. Now, I want to make it clear, like, I had no plans or any type of ideation or anything like that. It wasn't like that, because there's no way I would let a situation like this push me to that point, okay? But it truly was a huge amount of emotional pain, and I couldn't sleep. I felt it in my body, and I said, okay, well, this is finally, right? This is it. I mean, obviously, I know that this guy has slept with someone else, right? He strung me along, and for a number of months, I don't know, changed his mind or got what he could out of me. And, obviously, I had suspected that he's probably sleeping with someone else all along. It's pretty obvious that we're not going to meet up, or if we are going to meet up, this isn't going to be good for me. So let me just cut all communication here. And so I unfriended him on Facebook and did a number of other things. Our communication had probably, it was just pages and pages and pages, probably, if you printed out the messages, which I did not. But it was a huge amount of a communication. And so I went to delete this app that we were communicating on. This is the middle of the night. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I want to say, I'm not usually into this type of drama, okay? This is not something that's normal for me. Fortunately, I haven't had this since, and this happened 5 years ago, and I had not had this happen before. So this was not like a regular routine for me. And I understand that for some people it is, okay? But that's on me. So when I deleted, I was about to delete it. So talk about spiritual forces again, because this is a true war. A war that you can't talk about. Okay, so this knowing came over me, and once again, I'm translating it to words, but they just said, don't delete the messages. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, right? I'm like, don't delete the messages. I have to delete the messages. I'm like, I just, like, at the time, and this is perfectly normal reasoning, right? Like, look, this guy's no good. It's not going to work out. Like, let me just cut all communication, right? How many videos do you watch? No contact, la, 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 la. And I hadn't watched any of those videos, but I knew I had to just move on with my life, right? I could literally feel this connection, and I said, look, I've got to delete these messages, man. Like, what? And then I'm like, is it just me in my head, like, saying this? I'm like, is this really, because I do believe that throughout my life, believe me, I've had protection, or else I wouldn't even be here talking with you, quite frankly. So I never go against my gut instinct, okay? But I was questioning it, and I'm like, don't delete the messages? I think I have to delete the messages. I was just like, look, I'm in the worst type of pain. Okay, so once again, and the thing is, with this communication, it's very neutral, and I'm I'm translating it as don't delete the messages, but it was not urgent. It was like, it would just be best if you keep the messages. It was very peaceful, calm, and I was not peaceful or calm, but the presence or the people coming to me trying to help me, they knew a lot more than me at the time, okay? And so their next step was to tell me, you'll understand in the future, just get to a point of neutrality where just keep them, but you don't have to look at them. Just get to a point of neutrality. That's what they kept saying, like, where, you're indifferent and you don't really care. And I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, no, this can't be. I'm never going to get to that point unless I delete the messages, right? And like, I'm kind of going back and forth before I put my finger on this app. And I was like, I'm sorry, like, I'm in the worst emotional pain in like 20 years. I can't talk to anybody about this. I can't do anything about this. I don't even know what the hell this is, but I got to move on with my life. Like, I can't keep these messages. And, they were just like, okay, they weren't like trying to pressure me or whatever. Like I said, it wasn't like this energy bubble, like, that was with me every single day with Mr. Catalyst, right? Which I was completely addicted to, So I delete them. And I did feel a relief. I felt a relief. This is important. But it was temporary. Literally within 2 hours, all the emotional pain came back. And I was like, what? What is this? I'm like, I have never experienced this before in my life. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I just deleted all the messages. I unfriended this guy. I didn't block him. I don't know. I'm not a big blocker. I'm more about dismantling the energies, so you don't really care. I kind of take the long road, but I understand blocking is sometimes absolutely necessary, especially if you're dealing with someone that's abusive or coming at you or whatever. I know everyone hits the block button these days, okay? In 2019, I opted not to do that, and I messaged him, and I just said, I unfriended you and everything. I didn't tell him why. I just said, I just have too much going on right now. I unfriended you and everything, and I wish you good luck. And I was still in the worst emotional pain of my life, not understanding it because it just didn't make sense to me, right? So let's bump up to the surface, right? Like, what am I going to tell people? Well, yeah, I messaged with this person for a couple of months, and yeah, it didn't work out. And I deleted everything. I should be fine, right? Like, I'm the one that's overreacting, right? How many videos to this point did it take me to even unveil this information? Who's going to listen to that in everyday life? Not many people, right? So I'm in a double bind here where I got to move on with my life, but I have this huge level of pain that I don't even understand. Like, that's when it hit me, like, oh my God, like this. I had spoken in previous videos about thinking that I was in the ocean and the water is, up to my ankles or knees. Well, this was the moment that I realized, like, I'm over my head and I'm drowning in the ocean, and I didn't even realize it until I tried to delete those messages, and I was still not getting anywhere, I really should have just felt relief, and it should have been normal where I could have just continued on moving past this person, and not to say I was going to push it under the rug. I realize, like, you put yourself out there, it does take a little bit to kind of get yourself back in balance. But if you're talking about just messaging for a couple of months, I mean, on the surface, if you bump up to the surface, that's not really that big of a deal. All right, so I'm going to jump timelines here for a minute because there's something very important that I want to mention on the side of Mr. Catalyst, okay? I would say, let me think. It was probably like 6 months later that we communicated about this specific night. I'm not going to get into everything here, but I remember very specifically what he said. And he said, when I deleted everything and I notified him that I had deleted everything, he said, I wasn't hurt, I was floored. I'm going to repeat that again. He said, I wasn't hurt, I was floored. And so there was something specific that I said, and I remember what it was, but I don't want to unveil any identifying characteristics of this person, so I'm not going to say it. And it wasn't, it wasn't anything mean or nasty. I wasn't mean or nasty. I wasn't trying to hurt this person. I was just trying to get away from him and go on with my life. Okay. There's an important reason why I'm mentioning this. Okay. And when he told me that, I was like, whoa. And once again, I'm going to jump timelines to present day. And what I'm going to say is, this twin flame programming really does affect both people, okay? And what was happening in this situation, right? He's doing his thing. He's on the sexual merry-go-round, God knows how many years, right? And once again, this is not unusual after I did research into this. He's just doing his thing. He, sleeping with some other woman, he's not intentionally hurting me. And I know that sounds strange, but like I totally get it now. I totally get it, because believe it or not, because of the connection that we have, but it was extremely painful at the time. And now here's the interesting thing. So he's not meaning to hurt me. He's just off doing his thing, right? And then with my words, and I'm a writer, I'm a writer always first, and I make videos. I would say it's an adapted skill. I'm still learning. That's an aside. But with my words, which are my primary sword, and I said something to him that just knocked him out. He didn't mean to hurt me with his actions, and I didn't mean to hurt him with his words. And yet, we both really hurt each other. And that is very common in these types of situations. Now, I didn't know that I had hurt him at the time. And, you could sit here and say, well, it was warranted. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to this, but still, it's not in my nature to go out and try to hurt people. There's enough of that going on in this world.